said Israel has a history of going after these decapitation strikes. We've seen it just in this past year. They assassinated Hania, the Nasrallah, IRCG brigadier generals in Damascus as well as in Lebanon, and now the latest one here with Yahya Sinwar. So it doesn't seem to have much of an effect. It almost seems to have the opposite desired effect. From a military strategical point of view, it seems to have kind of a rallying around the flag effect. It seems to strengthen the resolve of these movements and actually garner a lot of sort of sympathy from around the world in terms of just the global opinion about what's going on. So why would Israel continue to pursue this type of strategy if it's counterintuitive? I mean, it's not effective, right? I mean, it's counterproductive.
Yeah. Well, okay, I think there's one very cynical explanation, which I don't know if it applies in this particular case. Actually, I don't think it does so much. But in the cases often it's that they want to avoid a negotiated settlement. And I think that's one reason that they killed Hania. And they actually killed a previous, several months earlier in Lebanon, they killed another Hamas lead negotiator. Because they actually don't want negotiations to succeed. That's one reason why they kill these leaders. In the case of Sinwar, that may be part of it. He was actually making noises about, trying to renew negotiations.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like a week ago. He hadn't been heard from, and there was some talk that maybe he was dead, but he wasn't. He actually communicated his desire to revive the negotiations just about a week ago. So that maybe play into it, but I don't think so. In fact, this was not, to all appearances, and according to the statements of the IDF leadership, and I think we can believe in this case. This was sort of an accidental event. They just came across him. Biden claimed that he was killed because of U.S. intelligence. And I think that's nonsense. He was outside. He had been described as a coward. Cowering in the tunnels, and it's clearly not true. He was out there in the open, and Israeli soldiers came upon him and attacked him and ended up killing him and his bodyguards. And that's not the first time he was out in the open. I was just reading that there was a journalist encountered him I believe, months ago, and just interviewed him out on the streets in Gaza.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this man, you can, whatever you think about him, but he was very courageous. He clearly was. I think anyway, going back to your question, I think the reason that the main motivation for killing him was revenge for October 7th. I think you don't really have to supply any other motive. There may be other motives. Quite often by killing him, they also reduce the chance for negotiations. Probably,
right. I mean, from the Israeli point of view, I guess you could see it as a justifiable killing. Obviously, if he was the man that was behind October 7th, but the problem is that they just demolished all of Gaza in the process and killed all these people. Like if it was just a single.
I mean, if they had just done that. I don't think it would. It's not something that I would advocate, but it would be understandable. Just to kind of in the terms of the logic of war and military conflict, it would be justifiable. You could see. But yeah, in the process, they simply destroyed Gaza and have made it pretty much uninhabitable. And we don't know how many dead Gazans there are. So there's just nothing to celebrate here. I find the statements by Western leaders just to be disgusting. They celebrate this. This is a victory for humanity. He's described as a terrorist, a coward, and he was neither of those things. I just find it vile. You don't forget, it was just less than a week ago that there was that horrible attack on the hospital. We just saw that he was the man who was fighting the people who was doing that, and he was fighting bravely. you should say, whatever you think, maybe you think it's just revenge for October 7th. You should at least acknowledge his bravery and his humanity. And none of the Western leaders did that.
What about leaders like from Russia or China, these other global powers that aren't, Islamic powers that aren't part of the Middle East? What's been the global response to it?
Actually, I don't know. Frankly, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see, because obviously you think that within the Middle East you would have a lot, but we are seeing this power shift where it seems like India, Russia, and China are all becoming more sympathetic towards Iran and just the axis of resistance in general. So, how Israel goes after the political leaders and military leaders like this, is this something that we have historical precedents for, that you just go for these assassinations and decapitation strikes? Because it doesn't seem to follow the normal rules of war in any way. And somehow whenever we do it, we just celebrate it here in the West. We're like, yeah, so good, we did it. But at the same time, it's like, aren't assassinations kind of gross? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like they're not.
Right. They're dirty. They're cowardly. I think it's actually in general it's something that you don't do. You don't go after the leader of your adversary. If you do, one thing is that you open up the door to the possibility that your adversary will go after you, right? Go after your leadership. I guess, I think there are a couple things going on here. It's just a sense of impunity that the West and Israel have. They're much more powerful than their rivals, or have been, up to maybe until very recently. We may see that finally changing. So they just simply can do what they want. They don't have to worry about the consequences. So they don't really have to observe let's say, the etiquette of war. I mean, and in general, you just don't do that. You don't try to kill the leader of your adversary, but they can do it, and they don't have to worry about the consequences. And then it's, and then it's also just this ideological, ideology of supremacy. Again, that they're terrorists. It's just an extension of that, of regarding all of your adversaries as somehow not being fully human, and you're as we said recently, you're the civilized ones, you're the victims, so whatever you do is justified. Again, this is just another example of that kind of behavior.